Hello and welcome to Trojan Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. Today we'll be talking about the upcoming Frequency concert here at Troy University. My guests today, members of Frequency, Leah Lancaster and Michael Anderson, both members of Frequency. Thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us.
And Frequency, before we get into the concert, tell us a little bit about what is Frequency?
Frequency is Troy's premier vocal jazz ensemble. We're kind of a smaller group, so we've only got about 15 members, but we're an audition group, and we focus on vocal jazz as our music style.
Vocal jazz. I'll explain a little bit to folks out there who don't know what vocal jazz is. Kind of give us a description of what you would call vocal jazz.
With vocal jazz, it's a lot of a cappella pieces, but we want to resemble some of the instruments that you might hear in a jazz group. A lot of our pieces contribute from anything from Stevie Wonder to sometimes a little bit of a gospel to sometimes more spiritual pieces. So.
Now, in that regard, you're not an a cappella group, right?
No.
So I mean, there are some instrumentation in this, and you do have some backing instruments behind you, but there is some elements of that similar vibe, I guess, to an a cappella group, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
a lot of the stuff that we do, like for vocal jazz, a lot of the time it relies on what we call crunchy notes, which means it's going to be a little bit more dissonant. So there are moments where sometimes even we're not 100% sure if what we're hitting are the right notes, but it's those moments of dissonance and then resolution that really makes vocal jazz what it is.
Well, let's talk a little about the concert itself and what you're performing, because usually the vocal jazz has a variety of options, I guess. You can choose a lot of different things. You just mentioned there a Stevie Wonder tune, but kind of give us a heads up, because I know there's a variety of well-known tunes and some things that are probably not so well-known.
Right. Well, what we're doing this semester actually is we've kind of got a variety of pieces going now. Some of them are, like you said, more noticeable and more recognizable to people who don't know what vocal jazz is. So we're actually doing a couple of vocal jazz versions of, to honor Gene Wilder's passing, we're actually doing Pure Imagination, a vocal jazz version of that. And we're also doing Don't You Worry About a Thing, as he mentioned, for Stevie Wonder. And then we're also doing a vocal jazz version of More Than Words by Extreme, which is probably the most recognizable one I would think that we're doing. But then we also have a couple of pieces that are by our standard. We bring in Carrie Marsh a lot of the time to do workshops, so we always do a couple Carrie Marsh arrangements. So we're doing Holocene, which is made popular by Bon Iver, and it's a Carrie Marsh piece. So
and the opportunity to perform works, the vocal jazz versions of popular songs. That's got to be pretty cool to be able to throw your own spin on something that folks have heard probably hundreds of times in their lives, but doing something a little bit different.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for instance, like a song like "More Than Words." It's one that probably everyone out there has probably sung along in their cars once it ever pops on the radio, especially people my age. So being able to take a song like that and put your own spin on it, to kind of tell us how you do that. Like, what makes it different, what you do versus what you hear on the radio?
Well, a lot of the things is just like the notes are going to be a little bit different because it's a vocal jazz version, so there's going to be more dissonance. But we do have the opportunity to kind of like take it and make it our own. Especially Michael has a solo that really gives him the opportunity to play with it a little more, and his is one of the most fun ones that we do. So,
so you get now with such a small group, I would think solos are something that you get a lot of opportunities. I think to be in a spotlight, and it's on a group like this. Is it kind of good to be able to shine a little bit on pieces like, for instance, the More Than Words for you there, Michael?
You do get a lot more opportunity for solos, but with it being a smaller group, everyone has a bigger role of knowing their notes, knowing when and when not to come in, and kind of finding your place, because since it's such small knit, everybody's role is pretty important.
And of course, it is a small group, and you're performing in what's a relatively a small venue, an intimate venue for anyone who wants to come and check things out. Tell us a little about the performance space and where y'all are performing. So,
well, we're going to be in Long Hall in the Choral Room. And we've had our concerts there in the past. That's usually where we rehearse, so we're pretty familiar with the space, but the acoustics are pretty good. And Frequency we value flexibility a lot. So sometimes you perform with no mics, sometimes you perform with 15 mics, sometimes you perform with like 4 or 5. So you have to get used to that flexibility and being able to fit the space. So we can do that. We get the opportunity to use mics in the space that we're in now, but the good thing about it being an intimate venue, like you said, is that it really gives the audience a chance to kind of connect with us the way that we've connected with the music.
And once again, before we go, when and where and how much does it cost to go?
It'll be Tuesday, November 29th, Long Hall, and it's free admission. It's at 7 p.m. Get there early because seats do fill up pretty quickly.
All right. Well, here's looking forward to hearing Frequency perform a couple of standards that folks know and some new stuff that give a chance to experience some vocal jazz. Thank you both for joining us here today. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, and thank you for joining us on today's edition of Trojan Talk.